All right. Happy Tuesday, everybody, and happy Valentine's Day. We are back with another Learning Tech Talks where we are exploring. Today, we are exploring the landscape of learning tech, and it fits where it's Valentine's Day because we're talking about a technology that I love, digital adoption technology. And to join me on this conversation, I am rejoined by Krishna Dunthoori from Apty. And you may be thinking, if you've been watching me for a while, you may be like, that doesn't look like Krishna. And it doesn't. It's like a different person. So thanks for joining me again, Krishna.
Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me for the second time, Chris. So always happy to be here. And I love, your show. I follow it. I watch almost every episode. So happy to be here. And thanks for giving me the time. And happy Valentine's Day.
That's right. Well, like I said, it's the perfect topic for the day because there are certain technologies I love, and this happens to be one of them. So we're going to have some fun with this. For those who may not be as familiar with the digital adoption space, you're going to want to listen up because, again, you will hear me say not only here, but in a lot of my posts, there are certain technologies that I think are fundamental in the tech stack, and this is one of them. And I think it's vastly underutilized when we think about enablement and performance, which is a huge area for us. So to kick things off, though, for those of you joining, let us know where you are. But Krishna, your background's deceiving. So where are you in the world right now?
I'm actually in Austin, definitely not in Canada where, the leaves still didn't come. So I have plenty of leaves to all the trees in my parking lot here. But thanks to, we have an amazing, internal digital team. So they make all these cool, awesome backgrounds that make it look like we are exactly where we are.
I have to call it out because I really like how you did it, because it is this really nice blend of authenticity while still having eloquent brand with it, which, a lot of times it's like in your face, the brand's all over, and it's like, no, it's subtle, but still feels very authentic. I like it.
Thank you.
All right. So how is it in Austin right now? I know I've got some coworkers that are in Austin and they've had ice storms and the weather's been all kind of wonky down in Texas. So is it hot? Is it cold?
No, it's perfect actually today. So thankfully all that's gone. A lot of trees, had to be cut down with ice and everything else, or they fell down. But this week is amazing. In fact, I'm actually looking into, the parking lot here. It looks, sunny, beautiful. It was a little bit, rainy and gloomy yesterday, but today is one of those days. Again, it's Valentine's Day, right? So it has to be perfect.
It has to be nice. It has to be nice, filled with warm feelings and warm temperatures, which up here in Wisconsin, it's, for February, mid 40s, 50s is balmy as far as I'm concerned. I'm getting ready to break out the flip-flops and board shorts. It's about that time of year. In the Midwest, once it breaks 50, watch out. You're going to see T-shirts and sandals everywhere.
Yep. Not in Austin, though. We need 70.
I was going to say, down there, and a lot of my coworkers are in Florida, and it's the same thing. They're like, 50 degrees. It's
cold.
Freezing. That's cold. Up here, that's toasty. I'll go tanning in the lawn. All right. Well, so for those who may not have seen the first episode, and for those who may not be as familiar, tell me a little bit. Let's go back to the Wayback Machine and talk a little bit about your background, your journey, because obviously you're now the founder and CEO of Apty, which is a digital adoption platform. But how did you go from where you started to there?
Sure, absolutely. So born and brought up in India, went to Germany to do my master's, worked there for a few years, then moved to US, like any other immigrant, or especially in this case, a tech immigrant, came to, New York, then to Silicon Valley.
Were you always in tech? Like, when you went to grad school, so that was the background.
So I did my undergrad in Bachelor of Computer Applications and then did Master's in Computer Science in Germany. Then worked there, for a few years before moving to the US. After coming to the US, I was a traveling consultant, a tech consultant, quickly worked my way through a principal architect. But very early on, I've been very, very fortunate, Chris, to be honest, to get the opportunity to work with the C-suite folks and and the leaders in the enterprises, because I was implementing enterprise software and I had to interact with both tech and business side of the folks at the same time.
Okay. So that was the consulting you were doing, was
Exactly.
consulting with kind of business leaders on big ERPs and things like that.
ERPs, project management systems, CRMs as well. So that experience helped quite a lot, and which obviously has a connection to how Apty came to be and what the problem we're trying to solve. But the seeds and how the foundation basically started from my background, right? So I mean, I started as a software developer, but very quickly moved on to the tech consulting side, where I was designing solutions, architecting solutions, working with both tech and business in getting those softwares implemented for enterprises and stuff. So that continued for a few years, and I found a good niche, a good gap in how I can do some of these implementations, go better, go faster, and bring some efficiencies, if you will. So that's how my first company, it's a pretty services company that I started, I bootstrapped back in 2009, and I ran it for.
So was that kind of part of the focus, even in your consulting, where you're like, yes, we're doing these implementate, but how can we do it more efficiently? How can we get better? Was that really a big part of the focus?
Right. If you think about it, even now it happens, right? So, but 10 years before, it feels like it's like before Christ, but even 10 years before, 10 years before, things were very different. Like, at least in the space that I was, what used to happen quite a lot, and a lot of people, who were in this, consulting background or, part of, software implementations can relate to this. Many times these organizations buy an off-the-shelf product and completely customize the heck out of it to make their business processes work, right? So, either they would probably have already tried to build something on their own and it didn't go, or they had very old legacy systems that they can't use anymore. So it's pretty tempting, right? Because, these companies were coming up with some very sophisticated, comprehensive softwares. But the thing is, you take in our case, the tool that I was specialized in, it was a project management tool. It's the same tool that's, sold to banks, manufacturing companies, retails, and, financial, or healthcare industry, you name it. And their use cases are very different, right? So their business processes are very different.
All project management isn't created the same.
Exactly. Right.
They're doing similar things, but the workflows and the way the ops happen isn't consistent.
So we used to customize pretty much everything for them from scratch, and therefore, what's supposed to be off-the-shelf product to help them, kickstart, was never off the shelf. And it used to take months, sometimes, I was part of even like a 2-year implementation before we went live with the customer. So in this process, I observed that there were quite a few things that were done very inefficiently. Again, as part of, being part of the team, I was part of an implementation team on multiple projects. I was very fortunate, like I said, to work with, a lot of companies, a lot of big companies in the US and elsewhere. So once I, started observing that, things can be done better, right? Maybe if you take the same software and two different, companies from the same industry are implementing it, there's a lot that you can actually replicate, right? So like, two airlines buying the same tool, it's two different companies, but there's probably a lot that you can templatize, or you can create integration adapters for, or you can make it a better and efficient implementation. And,
and this is all, I mean, a lot of this, what you're describing, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is kind of growing out of the evolution of SaaS.
Yes.
Because we went from everybody built these custom systems and all this. And as SaaS grew, it was like, well, now we flipped the script to the other side of, well, it's just like this. And it was a really tumultuous time, which, like you said, it feels like a long time ago, but it really wasn't all that long ago.
It wasn't all that long ago. And like I said, the roots basically of the problem that we are solving now, started from there, and they were there all the time. These problems were there. These problems.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't new. It was a different flavor.
Exactly. So that's how I got started. I found a gap. Took the plunge. Never opened a company before. I've done some small businesses here and there, but really not in the scale or the way that I wanted to. And as you say, right, once you're ready, right? So and took the plunge, started the company, and I'm glad that it worked out, and we grew to be one of the top practice companies, boutique companies, for that particular tool, is Clarity. And we grew quite a lot, and that helped me with my entrepreneurial journey, how to basically scale a business and all that, which I'm still learning every day, if you ask me. But having that experience definitely helps. So that's how from India to Europe to US, my journey. From being a student to somebody who was working in Europe, coming to the US, becoming a consultant, and then becoming an entrepreneur. I've been fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of very intelligent, loyal, and talented people that helped me every step of the way. So I'm always thankful for that. So that's how the journey started, and how Apty came to be is really from our own experiences, right? So
because I was going to say what you led up to from there is the where you got the entrepreneurial start was this kind of helping bridge this gap between, okay, you've got a SaaS, but you need some customization. So let us help with kind of designing what that is to make it work for you. And then that's what set the table for going, I think we should build a DAP. Is that correct?
Exactly. So, and just like how you said, a lot of audience, might not know what DAP is. They might be hearing for the first time. Who probably will be seeing that meeting as well. And to be perfectly candid, I also didn't know what a DAP was. I didn't even know that a category or a name for this solution existed, because for me, basically what motivated or what pushed me go in this direction, Chris, was the problem. The problem was so evident, that and it really surprised me when I was running the services company, and we were very fortunate to do literally hundreds of projects over 7-8 years of that journey. And what really fascinated me was it didn't matter how well the software implementation was done, how sophisticated the software was. And even if we followed the customer's requirements to the T and configured it and trained it on that, it was just a matter.
Even if you built it perfect,
right? So it was just a matter of time. A key business stakeholder from the customer side started feeling that we're not really getting the value. Again, nobody was using the word adoption or digital or anything like that, but it was really a value measure, right? I mean, if you think about it, too often, this happens in companies that they identify a big problem, right? They identify a big gap, and somebody says that, oh, we can fix this by throwing this software in or this technology.
Yeah, let's buy this platform because this platform's designed to fix this, and that should solve it.
Exactly. And they're not wrong in doing that, and they go through an amazing vendor selection process and implementation and go live and training and all that. But what really happens is over the period, the users just don't use it, which is, in other words, they don't get adapted to the technology, right? So there's a lot that you need to be doing. It's like working out. If you just go to the gym for 1 month and you see a little bit of a muscle coming, you don't stop there, right? You have to do that as long as you want. I mean, as long as you can, because the minute you stop, it's going to go down, right? It's probably going to get worse. That's what happens, right?
Right.
So that's the problem that we were observing, we were seeing, we were living. And our initial idea when we came up with doing solving this problem, because I started observing that this is really siloed problem, right? I mean, it's a holistic problem, but with siloed solution rather. L&D is focusing on just enabling and training and all that. Support is focusing on support, and the
customer service and support tickets.
The SI is focusing on customization and all that, and obviously whoever is the business sponsor, thinking that I got to do more of these 3 or 4 things so I can get more productivity and ROI. But there's really no clear measure of it. There's really no clear visibility into Is it really people not knowing how to use the technology, or is it people not using the technology? Is it too complex? Is our process too complex? Where they're falling off, why they're falling off? None of this is visible to anyone. There's a lot of assumptions that go in.
There's a lot of, well, even going back to your analogy of working out, you see a lot of assumptions even of what user behavior is. There's an assumption that, oh, well, users are using it all the time. And going back to the workout analogy, in reality, they may be only hitting the gym once every 6 weeks because that's the only time they really need to get in. But when they do, it's really important. And
Exactly.
a lot of those assumptions get missed. It's like, oh, I just kind of figured everybody was in there all the time playing around with it. And that's not always the case.
Absolutely. So then the problem was evident, like I said, right? We didn't invent a new problem. This problem has been there as long as, the technology has been coming into people's lives and people getting adapted to the technology. But the solution, even now, the top analysts came in over the last 4 quarters or so, Chris, and again they now have recognized DAP as an official category, all the major ones, Forrester, Gartner, and everyone else.
Yep.
According to them, only 10% of the companies have actually used or trying to use DAP, right? So that means still 90% of the companies are either living with the problem or dealing with what they are already dealing with, and they're just okay with using these siloed solutions for the problems that they've been solving, which probably are not giving them any viable solutions, right? They're just spinning the wheel, they're just kicking the can down the road. When we first started, when we identified this problem, what we really wanted to do is there anything that we could do? Again, this was 2017 already, right? So is anything that we could do that will really help the user to do what they're supposed to do when they're interacting with a technology or a software, but it doesn't really intrude into the actual application, so it doesn't compromise the integrity? Because that's the biggest conflict if you think about it, right? The biggest conflict is when you have, in our case, the focus is enterprise software. In our case, we identified the problems in enterprise space even more. But if you take an enterprise software off the shelf, just for example, we talk about Oracle or Workday or any of these enterprise softwares, right? You've already done enough customization. The last thing you want to do, or even the vendor wouldn't allow, is to have a third party deeply integrated to help you with whatever it is that you're trying to get. Because they're always concerned about security. There's always concern about privacy. There's always concern about who would maintain and what will happen and all that. So that led to a little bit of technology innovation and hunt from our side. And this is, mind you, like I said, I personally didn't even know that there's a thing called DAP, or I didn't I was aware of any of the competitors at the time. All what we wanted to do is there any way we could be on the application, follow the user, understand what the user is doing, who the user is, what they're supposed to do, where they are in the process, versus where they should be, and can we guide them or nudge them to do the right thing? So this was the fundamental thought process.
I love that you talk about that piece, because I do think sometimes people hear it, like you said, it's becoming more of an industry category. So people might be familiar, may have heard DAP or digital adoption platform, but even still, that layer of what is it, and you just described, I think, really eloquently, what does it do? So that people understand, like, oh, okay, so that's how it's actually interfacing with the end user, is that it's not, the way you described it is just really helpful, because I think people sometimes struggle understanding.
People, right? It's designed for the biz ops side. It's designed for, because if you think about it the traditional way, like I said, the problem is there. The solution is very divided between L&D only for the training part, or
it's very siloed and compartmentalized oftentimes,
right? Or you are at the mercy. And I was talking to one of the chief HR officer of a major conglomerate company, right? It's one of our clients. One of the biggest frustration that this executive had at the time was, I'm responsible for the entire HR application suite in our company, but guess what? I have zero authority to do anything in the application because I'm at the mercy of IT.
Yeah, right.
I'm at the mercy of
Which is a very common response from folks. This is a struggle
exactly.
they're in.
Exactly, and it makes sense because of the size of the company, because of the privacy concerns and the bureaucracy that they have and all that. Everything, like if you want to touch your application to do anything, even to add a field or introduce a new process or make a small change, which from the business point of view, they should be able to do that quickly so they can see the impact quickly, right? They don't want to go to IT, then IT engages an SI, and the SI comes and says, okay, you know what, you want me to create 3 different fields? Oh my God, it's 3 months worth of customization work.
Well,
right?
and a bunch of cost associated with it, because it's all this other stuff. It's like we're already in on the enterprise application. We're already in on all the customizations we've already done and all the support we're pouring into it. And now the thought of like, and now you want us to add a custom field or something? Like, how do you even know you actually need that custom field type of a thing?
Exactly. And this is where, again, for those audience who are listening this and trying to understand where DAPs come into the picture, because there's a perception in the market, Chris, and I'm glad we are talking about this on your show, because it's one of the very, like I said, very well followed show in the learning community. There is this perception that DAP tools are a replacement for simple L&D tools. They're not wrong,
Yeah.
but it's just less than 20%, right? DAP tools are way more efficient and and comprehensive than what a traditional L&D. Because the problem is not the problem of getting technology and software adoption doesn't get resolved by focusing more on L&D. The L&D will help you with increasing the engagement, improving the engagement. But if that improvement in engagement, if it's not resulting your expected business process outcome, you're still dealing with a huge adoption problem. And that comes with what happens beyond learning. What happens beyond, like we just published an article the other day on LinkedIn, talking about, you have now implemented your software, then what's next?
Yep.
Right. The thing is, you have to think about how do you make sure that you get the value out of it. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, and I want to dig into this a little bit, but before I do, Heather, I really want to pull this up, because I think as we kind of close the loop on defining what a DAP is, I think it's a good comment to kind of talk about in terms of, we buy these applications, they are architected around a certain way of usage, but a lot of times the end user may not always be aware of that, or they may not necessarily know how they're to use it according to the business processes and things like that. And I think, Heather, your point's spot on there in terms of that is kind of one of the big value adds of the DAP, is it helps you say, hey, here's how you should follow this process. Here's how you should use this. So instead of fumbling around through the system and feeling like I'm just going to take a swing at it and hope I get it right, those business process owners, those business owners who say, well, this is actually how we need to use it, can actually prescribe that, but then also see, are people using that way, so we can improve if there's a broken business process, if something isn't working. I think to your point, you've mentioned this a few times, a lot of this stuff is done based on gut feel and assumption, because historically we've had no idea what actually happened. We're like, well, I think they're using it well, or I think they're not, or we don't find out until 6 months later when we go, what happened in the system? Like, it's a hot mess. And it's like, well, we could have caught this earlier had we had that digital layer to help not only drive the right behaviors, but monitor what behaviors are happening in it.
Exactly. And I'm glad, Heather, thank you so much for your comment. It's a good segue into, I know it's been probably almost 2 years, I think, since we spoke.
It has.
Chris, right? So, and obviously DAP has evolved quite a lot, which I'll talk a little bit later in the show. But one of the things that we are seeing an opportunity, right? So we want to, go and become a thought leader in this space and all that is, like I said, DAPs are not only, designed for user onboarding and training. Those are table stakes. Like in this day and age, if you are a DAP service provider, a DAP solution provider, and if you don't have something for, user guidance or onboarding or user engagement, you're not even a DAP tool to begin with, right? But if
Agreed.
you're only doing that, you're not really adding any value. To Heather's
Correct.
point, and this is the same thing that we've been doing a lot of market research and user validation and problem validation as well. And I've been privileged to talk to quite a few of CIOs in the industry. Business process standardization is the biggest problem for a CIO, right? Besides everything
It's a
that they have to,
huge
right?
problem.
Besides everything that they have to deal with, I consistently heard from at least over a half a dozen CIOs, one way or the other, their biggest headache is they get sandwiched between the business and the IT, and it all leads to, hey, we have given you sometimes millions of budget, because our business process is not getting standardized. People are doing all over,
Yep.
things, in all different ways. And how can you help? Because their immediate fallback, or their immediate, in some cases, unfortunately, scapegoat is also IT and the CIO office, right? So hey, you are responsible for the technology, but you are responsible to make sure that our business processes are standardized through your systems. But guess what? The problem is, how are they doing it? What approach are they taking? Right? So they are either relying too much on very inefficient solutions, like even using a DAP also very inefficient, because you're only using it for enabling and onboarding. You're not really
Yep.
taking advantage of fixing the problem holistically, right?
Yep.
And again, going back to Heather's point, is if you have a business process which is defined in a standardized manner, right, even after the customization in some cases, what you really want to know is why a user is not following the standard path.
Exactly.
It's not just the navigational path. Why are they not doing the things in the standard way that's described? The minute you can get visible into it, Chris, which is exactly what Apty is leading the way in the DAP solutions out there, it's a game changer. You now have a
Huge.
total different way of looking into where the problem is, right? I always
Yep.
give this example when I talk to if you are running a ERP in a huge organization with 20 different countries doing the business and all. Even as trivial process as invoice processing could be a big headache, right? So the standardized method
And extremely cost and time intensive on a company. That's the other thing. This isn't like, oh, well, it's just the cost of doing business. I mean, this can cost millions.
Millions. And what we have observed was the standardized process. For example, I was doing this for a client. Our standard invoice processing is less than 7 days, but guess what? It never happens less than 7 days. It's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and bottleneck after bottleneck after bottleneck. But it's all assumptions, right? So and sometimes the assumptions go as broad as, oh, maybe we have to completely revamp the process, or maybe we have to train everybody again on how to properly submit.
On how to do it. Or maybe we get rid of the platform that we just sunk millions of dollars into, and we replace it with something else because we think, oh, well, maybe it's the software.
Exactly. Even that too, right? So this is where properly utilizing a solution like a DAP, right, which goes way beyond, like I said, of initial training and stuff, can give you those insights, can tell you that what, it's really Germany and Netherlands. These are the two that have the problem, because as per their regulations, local regulations, they have to do 3 additional things while processing or while submitting, and that's not happening, and that's basically clogging the whole process, right? So because invoice gets stuck there, blah blah blah, whatever it is. Now, would you want to do heavy customization to every different scenario in your own tool to find that out, or do you want to go with a very seamless, streamlined solution that a business admin can maintain with almost low code, no code, that can give you the insight? And guess what? You can also fix the gap by yourself. All this, empowering the business side of it and not depending on the IT. So that's the magic, right? So that's where I think the category will evolve and continue to do more. And we're already seeing in the Valley and elsewhere the democratization of IT, where the dependency on IT should be less, right? So with the new technology, with SaaS technologies and all that, IT should be concerned about compromising or not getting compromised security or integrity, but business should have a much better control over their change management, their business process. It should not be dependent on IT for every little thing. and the perfect gap, the perfect solution is a DAP solution. So we can fix
Well,
that in the business.
and to your point with this, and I think this is really good for folks to hear who may be in the L&D space, because it can be difficult to sell a DAP, right, as an L&D function if you don't understand this side of it, because this really is where the business value of it's coming out tremendously. I mean, yes, there's value in the training and the onboarding and the orienting and helping people, less support tickets, things like that. That's all really good stuff. But also this whole business process standardization piece is huge in that it can allow you to operate much more surgically. I just think of the example you used, back in my pharma days when we were doing regulatory systems on a global scale. The nuance with doing a product submission in 46 different countries is so huge. And a lot of times when you didn't have this visibility, you really would have all these exceptions to data. You would try and make wide sweeping changes to the system to try and figure out well, does this work? And you created more problems than you solved. You're like, great, we solved it in Norway, but we just broke it for all of South America and JPAC. So, and Heather's comment in here, I think, is another really good one. The data quality solution piece. I mean, this is really, when we talk about that hidden ROI for this, is huge. And that matters not only to your IT folks, but also your business folks, because a lot of times the IT folks, they don't know the business process as well. So it's that real partnership between the two.
Heather should be really on our business consulting team. Thank you, Heather. I'll contact you offline. You're spot on. You're spot on. And this is where a little bit of market education, a little bit of thought leadership, and really understanding what the solutions are capable, right? So it's not just pushing a solution where there is no need and all that. This is a problem, as I said earlier, we lived through this problem, right? So after doing about 400 different projects in 10 years, we lived this problem, right? We have observed this. There was no eureka moment, like I said, even in my previous, session with you, Chris. We lived this problem so long and so many times. I'm like, there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way that's not broken into 3 different silos or 4 different silos.
No, and it's bringing that together. So there's one thing I want to talk about, and then I want to transition to kind of the evolution or the journey that the DAPs have been on. But you brought this up in terms of how in some ways this can be a perceived threat sometimes to learning and development. Well, how does learning and development play in this space? Because if it's doing this, isn't that really just taking care of things? And I want to talk about that because I've actually seen in organizations barriers be put up because of a perception that, hey, this might be a threat to us, versus no, this actually allows you to focus your attention on some of these other things that you couldn't do before because you were spending so much time trying to help people understand how to use the system, the contextual, the change management, a lot of these other things, they got missed because you were so focused on, we need to roll out training on how to put this process into the system for all employees again. And it's an all hands on deck thing. So you actually miss a lot of these other things. But I am curious, what have you seen with some of that in terms of the changing role? Because to me, it's not a threat at all. It's not a threat at all. In fact, there's a really beautiful symphony of things when you actually go, oh, that's how it plays together.
Absolutely. I mean, as you're asking this question, I was thinking, what would be a better analogy to describe it? And I think I have a pretty good one here. So the best way to describe why DAP solutions, as with any other technology innovations, DAP solutions are not a threat to traditional L&D. And we do sometimes actually hear, though, right? When some of our
I have no doubt you do.
They sometimes pretty much, flat out ask, we already do this, and therefore we feel like this will take out, some of our work.
Right. It's going to take our lunch.
Right. Exactly. But if you think about it, I would like to compare this to the evolution of, photography, right? With films, with digital cameras, and now with smartphones, if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
So if you are a photographer, if you are a professional photographer, as same as you are a professional L&D, resource, the photography didn't change, your passion didn't change, right? It didn't take your job away. But when you are dealing with films versus when you're dealing with digital camera, and now dealing with, a flip of finger, with your smartphone, you can take and
Yeah.
edit it right then and there on screen and post it to the
Yeah.
website. So what has happened is your work became much, much more efficient, right? So
Yes.
the tools are the mediums that you are using or you've been using just in the last 15 years has significantly changed, but it didn't throw you out from your photography,
No.
right? It didn't push you out like, okay, just because film is now changing to a digital cam to a smartphone, you're no longer a photographer. So if you
Right.
were, if that happened to you, maybe, it's a little bit controversial way of saying it. You probably were never a photographer to, to begin with, right? But that's how you have to see this, right? So the DAP tools are
Yeah.
not here to replace L&D, but the DAP tools are definitely disrupting, if
They
are
are
going to disrupt
disrupting.
even more,
They're
the traditional ways of doing the L&D, right? So the PowerPoints, the PDFs, the classrooms, the Camtasia videos, or any of those, traditional ways, which are one-time use, very, very complex and very difficult to, build and maintain. Like by the time you roll one video training out, you're already 5 changes behind.
somebody changed them. I grew up in the software training world, and it was a nightmare because you'd literally, by the time you got the job aids and the videos done, someone in product goes, "We just launched version, 1.12," and you're like, "Are you kidding me? We haven't even got these things out the door yet."
Exactly. And not just the roles, I mean, not just the tools, Chris.
Yeah.
I'm also observing how the role itself is actually evolving, right? So at least a few companies are ahead of the game here. The traditional L&D, like learning instructor or a trainer, these roles are changing, and we are seeing, which is, I think, is a very positive sign in some of the companies that I've observed. The L&D is actually getting morphed into a digital enablement and
Yes.
digital productivity team, right? So because what happened over the last, again, 10-15 years is now the companies have too much technology, too many
Yeah.
tools. Like, any small team can now.
Digital fatigue is real.
Exactly, and SaaS overload is real, right? It's happening, and it's not going to stop. It's going to continue to get in that direction and add more tools. Like I was saying, a typical enterprise employee uses like 4 to 5 tools today to just get by the day, just to do the day to
Yep.
day basic minimum tasks, and let alone what they have to deal with throughout their entire year, maybe 10-15 different tools to get things done. There's no way you can keep up with traditional L&D or the tools that you're using, the
No.
solutions you're using, and even that approach of traditional L&D, that mindset of, hey, I'm a learning instructor, so therefore my job is only come and teach you and go away, is not going to work, right?
Yeah.
It's already changing. If it's not, it's just coming to your organization pretty soon as well. So therefore the role itself is evolving into a technology enablement role. And
Yeah.
how do we get productivity across different flavors of software that we are implementing in companies? So and I have again, obviously I can't name the clients here, for client privilege and all that, but I was pretty impressed that some of the large financial institutions also have already started going in direction, and they have already set up teams, and they dismantled the L&D team literally, and they moved the resources, and who actually were able to make the switch to become, now they have a digital enablement team, which is
Yep.
responsible for, hey, this is a new technology, or this is a new change, this is a new process, or this is the new group that's coming into this technology, or whatever the need may be. They start from enabling, they start from improving the engagement, but guess what? Unlike the traditional L&D, they don't stop there. They're
No.
responsible to make sure that the usage, and again, the process completion or whatever, the compliance is always happening, and it's their responsibility. So they are the new face of.
Yeah.
So what they've done is they've merged, or they've kind of absorbed the L&D, the traditional L&D, into it, and then added much more. So it's a pretty fascinating journey to see how the role is getting evolved as well.
Well, and what's interesting about this is just kind of the, even just from the where I sit and some of the orgs I've led this through, is where I've actually seen where sometimes it's perceived as a threat, I've actually seen it create more opportunity. And in the way I've seen it create more opportunity is the folks that have been on my L&D teams, and even myself back in my software days, the folks who really loved leaning into the technical, like business process, trying to understand the user experience journey, figuring out that technical side and being the interface between IT and the customer, that's a different skill set than the L&D folks who are more on the talent and change. And it's a different skill set. And before, what used to happen is you got thrown into the same bucket, and it was, well, just go do it all. And as a result, you either focused on one or the other. And that was just, unfortunately, not a good experience for the end user, because either you had a really technical group that had a whole bunch of technical tutorials, but they didn't ever tell you, like, what's the purpose of the system, or why did we make, none of that was accounted for. Or you were the other and you did all the like why and all the important, but you never showed anybody any of the technical stuff. And what this has actually allowed, as I've set it up in organizations, is to specialize and say, my more technical folks who really do a good job of being that interface between IT and understanding business process and that whole side, they can really go deep on that.
Yes.
Opening up, and I think, Ellen, you made a good point on this, is opening up some other opportunities where you didn't have capacity because you were trying to do everything, to say, well, actually, you know what? We could never keep up with the business process stuff. Or two, we never had the opportunity to actually tell the bigger story or help people understand the change or connect it to some of the other organizational things that are happening. This actually allows, in my opinion, to your photography thing, you're freeing up a lot of efficiency to focus on more value add activities versus just the busy work, because like, well, we just got to do it. Oh, shoot, there's another update. Well, we got to redo all the training materials because this one field changed and we got to re-go do everything. Versus in a DAP, you go, well, we just need to change this one workflow and push it out, and we're taken care of. And now we can focus on some of these other things.
Absolutely. And thank you, Ellen, for making the comment, which is such an important point that you brought up. I wish over the period, L&D will morph into, learning, not learning and development, but learning and productivity, because that's where you can really do a lot of things. Because the traditional conventional wisdom is learning leads to productivity. And we have seen more often than not. Right? So therefore, again, as the role changes, new technology, new solutions like DAP, and tomorrow something else comes, again, DAP is already moving into, DAP with automation. So where, you can simplify things, you're not just creating a bunch of content like how we used to do in traditional L&D. And to Ellen's point, there's a lot more value add, things that you can do. And this actually brings L&D and the business much closer together.
Closer, right? Way closer together.
Right? If you think about it, in a lot of organizations, Chris, you grew up in this world, as you said, it's a separated departments, if you will, right? So they only do if there is a project work. If not, they're like, leave me alone kind of thing, right? Yep. But whereas, if you start thinking not just in learning and training point of view, but learning and productivity and efficiency improvement and all that, it's an ongoing thing. It's an ever-going thing, right? So, you can never stop, because your business processes are changing. You are doing different things, and the tool is changing, the business is changing, and you want to introduce new features. You want to, change the process slightly so you can get better efficiency. And sometimes you just want to experiment things to see, maybe this way I can get more, efficiency or productivity. If you are just handling through traditional L&D, it's almost impossible to go that route, because you are doing mostly project-based work, as opposed to you being on the business side and actually being, in the forefront of the problem, so you can get those insights. Again, that's where
when we've done this really well in the past, where we have seen the role we play. I mean, in many regards, in the software side, like we've been integrated into product development. We've been integrated into customer service, because you're seeing these insights and you're starting to see, okay, here's where it's breaking down. So you're feeding that back to the product team or the business process owner to say, here's where the business process is falling apart in these areas. You start to become a real business consultant while doing this alongside, which is what we're trying. I mean, again, with the advancement of AI, the need for us to focus more on these human consultative skills is going to just continue to rise, because that's where we need to be spending our time, to Ellen's point of spending time on the higher order value add activities versus, oh, we need you to build this little whip wizard thing.
Exactly. And you brought up a pretty good point. And if I may, I wanted to actually bring up this, during our conversation, because some people actually ask me, hey, we have used DAP in the past, but we didn't really see any value, right? Or we have tried to use DAP, but it didn't go anywhere. Or we use DAP, we get some value, but we don't see much value in the future, right? So again, all these three are very important, and I want to take this opportunity, if it's okay with you, to because it's
no, I think we should, because I've been in those conversations too. Well, we tried that once and it didn't work, and I always am like, what did you do? Because I have a sneaking suspicion we might be able to unpack where it went wrong.
Exactly. Again, we are also learning this, right? This is a constant learning opportunity for us to see where we can actually add value versus where, again, the common analogy of vitamin versus pill, right? So sometimes, people are like, yeah, I like vitamins, but I don't have to take them every day. And it's really the perception, right? So if you are bringing a DAP solution into your organization, just keeping learning and training in mind, like, hey, I'm doing a lot of this learning and training today with traditional ways of creating PowerPoints or videos and all that. I no longer want to do this, and I want to just do it interactively in the screen and all that, which is good. That's I would say, in your DAP maturity or adoption maturity, right? So rather, that's the very first step. But even today, Chris, you will be surprised how many of customer inquiries that come to us, even when we're talking to a VP level or director level folks in the companies. Their understanding of DAP is also, it's a new toy or new way of doing training. But it's only when we start unpacking, did you think about this? Like, how do you measure your adoption today? Do you have any visibility into where you might be losing efficiency or productivity? Why do you think, or what kind of issues you might be having with people, dealing with process and all? It's really lack of knowledge in a way. Like, they don't even.
It is.
That there are solutions that can actually go and do this, because in their mind, DAP solutions can only do one or two these parts, and therefore sometimes it also goes into the folks' hands who only focus on that, right? So we face those issues, but when we were actually given to the right stakeholders, the business side of the stakeholders, either from the CIO office or the business operations side or business application owners, who are constantly thinking about, how can I make sure that my user base is actually using these tools to do what they are supposed to do? When you start thinking in that way, then it's really a holistic solution, as opposed to.
You have to. I mean, you really have to make this a success, because if you're approaching it, going back to this common mistakes thing, if you're approaching a DAP and going to your organization saying, I think we should get a DAP because think how we could push training differently, you maybe would get some legs, but it is going to be pushing a rock uphill. Because again, I mean, if you're trying to say, instead of using Articulate or Captivate for our little videos, let's buy a big enterprise solution to sit on top of our systems, it's a tough value prop for a business leader to see if that's the only lens they're looking at it through. They're like,
Exactly.
I don't know that I'm really seeing that. Every time it's been a success in my background, it has been a very close partnership, like you said, with IT, the product managers, the business process owners, because they're the ones who are getting nailed at their annual review for, like, well, why is this product not working? Why are people so upset with it? Why is the data quality absolutely garbage in here? How come every time we run a report, it's inconsistent? And they're the ones who are taking the heat for that. And when you can partner with them and go, hey, let's fix this together. We've got a learning problem we got to solve, but you got a business problem you got to solve. And together, I think we can crack it.
Right. And that's where I think, that's where the business consulting or the business side of the expertise is really important, following the best practices. Because, the worst thing that, you can do is buy a DAP solution and put your junior most analyst on it and say, go run with it. Now the problem is, yes, they can run with it because the tool is
Yeah.
easy enough, for the most part, to just drag and drop and create the content or whatever. But the problem is, there's a reason why you're called, him or her as a junior analyst. They are not really your business stakeholders. They are not really understanding.
No.
At least having that input into, hey, these are our top 5 or 10, business processes, in this CRM or in this ERP or in this, HCM or whatever. Um, let's just identify where the issues are, where the bottlenecks are. Why do we have, such inefficiencies, or at least we are hearing, let's find out if this is true or not. That's a totally different way of approaching, the value prop that you want to
Yeah.
get, the ROI you want to get. And this is, again, obviously, companies like us and our competitors also, we are trying our best to educate the market, give this knowledge and all that. But this is important, right? So if you just take the tool, right, and keep it in the hands where there's not really an expertise or at least guidance of how do we extract the value, then it does become that vitamin where, you want to take it, but you keep forgetting it. And after that, sometime, you know what, I don't want it.
Eventually you're not getting the utilization. Because to your point, a couple of things to just hit on with that I wholeheartedly agree with you on this is, when you go to that junior person who, one, may not understand the business process, may not understand the system all that well, they're going to fall into the trap of, they're going to be excited about it.
Yes.
For good reasons. They're going to be excited about it, but they may not be strategic about what they do with it.
Yes.
And that's where, when you see, hey, we have this DAP, it's got 8 bajillion little wizards in here. And it's like, yeah, but I mean, were there really 8? Well, I made walkthroughs for literally every possible thing that was in the system. And it's like, that's not the best use of it, because it's becoming a maintenance challenge. It's becoming a time suck.
Yes.
You really need to use it very thoughtfully and strategically. And there's no, the other thing too is there's no shortage of pressure, because to your point of customer understanding, your senior leaders aren't necessarily thinking of it that way. So they're going to go to that junior analyst and go, make a million things, go do this. And they may not be in a position to go, no, because these are our top 5 customer issues. These are our top 5 business process issues.
Exactly.
I get, you think you're excited. Hang on here. They're not in a position to actually have that conversation.
Yeah. And there's also common misconception that, you take a DAP tool because it's interactive, you can create personalized content. Let's just create content, for every little thing, right? So we had a few customers, to be honest, like when we were first rolling this tool out. I remember particularly one customer very early on ended up creating like 1,200 walkthroughs or workflows or something like that. I'm like, oh my God, right? So we really.
But it's tempting. It's tempting, and you put it in the hands of somebody, and they get really excited, and they're just like, everything we can think of, let's do it.
Exactly. So a very simple question, made her think that, like, oh my God, what am an idiot? Why did I create 1,200 workflows? Like, how do you know that users don't know how to use the system for all these 1,200 scenarios? Nothing.
Right.
No visibility, nothing. Like, how do you know that these are your actual problems? So therefore, again, it's very tempting, to use DAP tools to create a lot of content. That also leads to frustration, because very soon you will find out that 50-60% of the content that you thought were the issues for the users are not the issues, because nobody is using that content anymore.
No.
Right? Because they the problem that you thought, the reason why people are not getting the productivity or efficiency from your enterprise software is not because they don't know how to use the system. In reality, what happens, again, I'm saying this from an enterprise software context, for those of you listening, at some point, your problem is not going to be your employees or consultants not knowing how to use the system.
No.
They will know.
Yep.
The problem is they just don't use it. They just don't follow the process in the standard way. They don't see the value in it, or what's important for reporting or for decision making, for you or your stakeholders is not necessarily important for them. So, the ability for you to really find those gaps, right? Understanding those gaps, and only create content or provide solutions to fix those gaps, address those shortcomings, nudge the user, or push the user to do the right thing, to follow the process. So it's really doing more with less not the other way.
Yeah.
If you have a
DAPs are for gaps, right? I mean, DAPs are for gaps.
exactly,
It's where you
exactly,
do it, not just blanket peanut butter spread it across everything. Because
exactly.
to your point with that, again, I've seen this in my experience as well, where when you do that, you actually can create a terrible user experience. I mean, you can make a frustrating enterprise software user experience even more frustrating if people feel like they're just getting bombarded by things that they're going, I mean, are you kidding? Like, I know how to log in. I'm aware where I put my username and
Exactly.
password. I don't need a pop-up telling me to put in my username and password. I know this stuff. I know the submit button logs me in, but we don't realize we can actually frustrate our users even more if we
Exactly.
aren't very careful about it.
Too much personalization, right? So, one of the topic we want to cover is too much personalization doesn't necessarily again lead to anything, right? So you don't want to go that route. The outcome is what drives the ROI here, right? So the outcome is you want to make sure that you have implemented an enterprise software and you want to get the best out of it, right? So you want to make sure that your processes are adopted well, the efficiency is there, and things are getting done on time, and with compliance. And in order for you to achieve, it's a 3 4 step process. You want to make sure you're definitely enabling the users and training them and all that, but that's not going to solve the problem. What happens after that, will solve the problem. So therefore, the ability for you to find those gaps easily, again, not depending on IT, not depending on customization, not compromising the security or the integrity of your host application, stay as an overlay solution, easy enough for a business ops team person to handle it and configure it, get those insights, analyze those gaps, address those gaps, and fix those solutions. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you said, I love that you added the part that too much personalization can actually be a bad thing. And I
Yes.
think that that is a real risk with something that has the potential to be really, in some ways, intrusive. Where you go, I'm just trying to get this thing done. I don't want more barriers. And so to do this well, we need to say, hey, like, how does this really be a personalized experience? And the way we do that is to truly understand, where are we putting it? Where are the gaps? And then let's apply this. And again, you can use it to find the data to help inform that as well. And it should be, I think, going back to this being perceived as a threat, if you're doing this well, this is how you should be handling software anyway, which is it's constantly changing. And
Yes.
you're using this data to continually inform you on, hey, how have things shifted? Where are we having issues that we didn't have before, so we can be more surgical and precise instead of let's just kind of throw things out there and hope we solve something.
Right. Again, creating too much of help, too much of content is not going to solve the problem, because you're just taking assumptions that problems are everywhere, or everybody doesn't know how to use your tool or solution. But it's not true, right? And most of the users will figure out pretty quickly, because today's software, from a navigation point of view, not necessarily is too complex. Again, there are some legacy applications and there are some complex applications for sure, but they're complex in the nature of how many processes the systems are handling, and that's where the problems are. That's where we can help.
Well, and I'm really glad you brought that one up with the like minute and a half we have left, because going back to some of the challenges that sometimes I've seen presented when you're positioning this is, even sometimes in IT, it'll go, the software is so intuitive, we don't need something like this. And if you're only positioning a DAP as a way to train people on the user interface, then they're not wrong. They're not wrong that this is a big, expensive implementation on something if you're going to show people where to find the help button and the drop downs and the hamburger menu. Like, no, you're right. We don't need that for this. But to your point, if you're positioning this more as, yes, the interface may be intuitive, but the business processes are super complicated and they're constantly changing, and how those are followed is the difference between us having a profitable year or not, potentially.
Exactly. Because finding those inefficiencies, gaps, and eliminating them or reducing them. Just think about it, right? Even for a large enterprise dealing with supply chain management or whatever, even moving the needle 5%, Chris, in terms of eliminating those inefficiencies, just think about it. in terms of dollars and time and
Oh,
energy.
I've done the math before. I mean, you can be talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars from a tiny, tiny shift.
Exactly. And I think that's where again, a lot of these companies are realizing the need for a solution like this, and now understanding that this problem is a holistic problem, not a siloed problem, thanks to all the analysts and everybody else. But we're pretty encouraged. We are seeing the trend in the right direction. It's going upwards. And one of the major analysts came out and said that by 2025, at least 70% of the CIOs will look into considering a DAP solution as one of their primary solutions in the ecosystem. So that's pretty encouraging.
As far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the cornerstone of your tech stack, whether L&D owns it or IT owns it, if you don't have a digital adoption platform in your suite, honestly, I feel like it's a fundamental mistake. I really do. With as many systems as we use, as much as people are in systems doing things, it's honestly a complete miss when you have the capability. So,
Absolutely.
Like I said, I'm showing some love on Valentine's Day because it's legitimate, and I've grown up in the space and seen the pain points far too many times. So I'm so glad you were able to join me. This was a blast, as I expected it would be. So thank you so much. And hopefully everybody who's listening, if this is unfamiliar territory, hopefully you're going, wait a minute, maybe I should be paying more attention to this. Or maybe you need to tap into your IT team to see, because that's the other thing. Some companies even have one, but they don't have the L&D or enablement function tied into it, and they don't even know how to use it, really. They're kind of like, I'm not really sure what to do with it.
Yep. I mean, it's a new emerging tech, right? So, what we can do now wasn't possible, 7, 8, 10 years ago. So definitely, there's time for people to observe and understand. With that, again, thank you so much for having me again on your show. Always a pleasure. Happy Valentine's Day to you and all the audience here. And drop us a note, or hit me up on LinkedIn if you have any questions or want to, learn more or what we do, how DAP tools work and all that. We'll be happy to get back to you. Thank you so much, Chris, again, for having me on the show.
You're welcome. Well, thank you, Krishna, and thanks everybody. I hope you all have a wonderful week.